Hi everyone, welcome back to another guide. I'm Upset Max, and today we are going to be doing the best openers guide and how to transition this into the mid and late game. This was highly requested from the viewers in the previous video, so here we go. So we're going to talk about what to do at each stage. Stage 1 holds, what to do about those. Then we're going to talk about the openers on stage 2, what mid-game boards to play on stage 3, and then finally how to cap things off with strong late-game boards. So we're going to do the openers, transition into mid-game, transition into late game, transition into first place. All right, so what's the importance of an opener? Basically, this will set up the rest of your game. So good opener, good setup, good mid and late game. Something to remember is early game items for your openers. Any extra early game items will really increase the power of your board. So there's essentially two main ways we can get this, at least uniquely for our board. So playing Academy early, getting these sponsored items, that means you are one item ahead or extra than everybody else, so your board strength will be a lot stronger. Same with early item augments. Any augments that give you early game items means that you are X amount of items more than your opponents. No, I didn't include any like encounters such as the Vibe one that gives you component anvils, because everybody will get those, so it's the same board strength for everybody. The other thing you need to remember for your openers is that encounters will influence how you play a game and especially how you create an opener. So for example, in like Mel's Blessing, when you get extra loot at 40 HP, you might be more incentivized to lose streak instead of like tempo streak, especially if you can't 5-win. And then vice versa, in Warp Encounter, you are leveling to 4 on 2-1. You are playing your strongest board, even though you might not 5 streak, because you need to kill units and get your gold that way. So those are a couple early game tips for your opener. Moving on now to stage 1 holds tier list. So I've created tier list here. We had some contribution from some other challenger players as well, but holding units on stage 1, holding the good units is very important. Basically, you need to have a good frontline package and a good backline package dependent on your items. So frontline, we have Sentinels, Watchers, and Bruisers. Sentinels right now are the strongest, so Singed and Aurelia. Singed just providing you so much utility and also the durability, and Aurelia just being a good tank and also being able to play 3 Rebel off of this. Watchers is next, mainly because of Conqueror. Being able to cash out early Conqueror stacks with Darius will give you extra gold and hopefully allow you to meet your next interval breakpoint. And then last but not least, Bruisers. Doesn't mean Bruisers are bad, they just have a bit of tougher scaling as you scale throughout the game, and also Trundle and Steb just don't have as much utility compared to Singed or Aurelia. Your backline is going to be dependent on your item drops. So currently there's a more AP backline options and just better ones than the AD backline. If you think about it, we have 2 Sork from Lux Zyra, also Lux just being insane. Being able to give a shield and a lot of single target damage is really important and very beneficial early game. So we have this package. We also have the Vex Morgana 2 Visionary backline AP package. Well, if you think about the backline AD, we have Draven that only functions really well with a Rageblade, and then that like makes it a little bit awkward. You could either go into like Twitch, but Twitch has a couple of conditions such as like Emblem +1s and also Collector. You go into Kog'Maw, same thing. There's artifact checks on this, and then the very last one is going to be Rebel Zoe. But Rebel Zoe, you want to be building more like AP items for Zoe, or at least like AS items. So Draven being an AD item makes it a little bit tough. So that's why AP is better than the AD backline right now. And then Maddie, same kind of sort of idea with IE. You could go into Corki or Twitch, but you just have more options with AP. So if you're dropped a tier or a rod, you want to be holding Sorks and Visionaries. However, if you drop like AD items like a glove and a sword, namely, to get that full infinity edge, then you want to be holding more like Maddie's and even like your Draven. Moving on to the 2 cost drops from your stage 1, most of the time you'll be dropped some sort of orb, so some sort of unit orb, either going to be 2 cost or 3 cost. I'm only talking about the 2 costs here. So let's start off. Any Akali or set drops, this will allow you to play an early Rebel opener, especially if you have the items a lot easier. Any Rel or Renata, if you have any Archangel, you want to be holding the corresponding packages, so the Visionaries and especially the Singed. Urgot drops is only pretty good if you have the 80 items to go along with this. This is kind of skeptical. If you have Unleash the Beast, then you definitely can play this line. So only hold the Urgot if you have like extra gold. Nocturne is really only played with a range artifact. So if you don't have a range artifact, let's say it's not Jason counter or you'll have better units to pick up, then you could feel free to sell the Nocturne. Ziggs, pretty good. Very good 2-star units. If you have Shojin, Nashers, Guardbreaker, JG, this is good, and you want to be holding the Trundle and the Steb. Any Zeri you want to pair with the Maddie if you have Rageblade IE, and then Vander, Vladimir, you could pair around the Conqueror Pit Fighters. Moving on to Leona. Leona is only a pretty good hold if you have an Ezreal or if you're able to get an Academy +1. Apart from that, Leona is not that great of a tank, and there's just better Sentinel units to play. Also, she's kind of expensive being a 2-cost unit. Tristana, if you have Worth the Wait, if you get Caretaker's Ally, but you essentially really need to guarantee the 3-star Tristana in order to like reroll her. If not, then I guess you could tempo her, but there are better units. And then last but not least, getting dropped a Camille. Camille is an artifact check unit for sure, so you can only play her. You should only play her if you have, sorry, this should actually be Prowler Claw, Cutlass, or Silver Mirrodon. So play around your stage 1 orb drops for 2 costs. Always try to go for a tempo and win streak, or at least go with this mindset. Sometimes you have to stay level 3 and make 10 gold though, however, if you don't have a really good opener. And some notable 3-cost drops that you really should not be selling is Swain. Swain, extremely good frontline unit if need to be, can hold backline units as well. Gives you Conqueror and Sorcerer, very, very good traits early. Ezreal, giving you Academy, and now you only need a Leona and a Lux, then you get a free item. And then any of the Chem Barons, Rennie, Smeech, being able to get Chem Baron going early, cash out a 400 and enjoy your free first place. Moving on to stage 2-1, so your 2-1 augment can really influence your tempo or your lose streak direction. So any of these S and A tempo, S and A augments or tempo augments to really help you streak stage 2. As you can see, they either give you an initial big boost of power, or it gives you an early item to allow you to win rounds. And then C to D are more like mid to late game augments that will spike you either on the start of stage 3 or stage 4+. So you can see here, like we have an item augment. This guarantees 2-star item, just overall good stats. Some tempo augments here with some econ, some more item augments. Any of the crests prismatic will give you a good item, or at least will give you an item. Build a bud, you're tempoing for sure. Item, I'm the carry, just insane early combat power. Radiant item here, radiant item. So these are the sort of augments that will allow you or give you an easier time to streak stage 2. Vice versa, the mid to late game augments, right? An Exalted Adventure, this is a win out one. Buried Treasure, you'll get all your items by 3-1. Caretakers, Chem Baron, Investment, and Prismatic. These are all later, so mid to late game spiked augments. Pumping up, support anvil or support dummy, over encumbered, Legend Forge, power up. These all come on stage 3+. And then Chem Baron, What Doesn't Kill You, Scorpion Scrapper, War for the Undercity are also mid to late game augments. So this is the separation between augments that will help you win stage 2 and augments that will allow you to spike harder on stage 3 or stage 4. One thing to remember on stage 2, if you are able to play early to Conquer, this will be very good. Even cashing out a 10 or even better 35 breakpoint will give you 2 gold or up to 5 gold. So this is really good. This gold is essentially free and might help you reach the next breakpoint. One last thing to know, rarely pre-level on 1-4. It is better to just hold your units. You're not always going to be streaking or looking to win streak on 2-1, and you can save that 4 gold and play a little bit more flexibly. Moving on to the stage 2 item tier list now. So Sunfire, Shojin, and Infinity Edge are going to be the S tier ones. Sunfire, flexible in every composition. The recent buffs makes it actually a great tank item with the percentage max health, and also gives you heal cuts. Shojin, flexible in many comps, and Infinity Edge, just a strong stage 2 item, best in slot on Corki, Twitch, also on Gangplank, Reroll, and Jace as well. I'll talk about the A's: Gargoyle, Guardbreaker, Runons, Last Whisper, Ginsu, Static Shift, Jewel Gauntlet. These are all from 2-1 item slams list, so not really taking into consideration your third component or your item economy, just purely on 2-1 what items you're happy to slam and help you streak, and ones you really should be avoiding: Quicksilver, Titans, Hand of Justice, Edge of Night, Gunblade, and Sterix. All right, so let's head on to the actual openers now that we have a bit of an intro, starting off with the Sentinel openers. So you want to be holding onto those Singes, you want to be holding onto those Irelias and even Rels. This will allow you to play either Rebels, Visionaries, Sorks, Academy backline, many different options. So the first one here, 3 Rebel, 2 Sentinel, 2 Visionary, Rel, Set, Irelia, Vex, super strong opener. You're going to be putting your Zoe items on your Vex, so like Rageblade, Guardbreaker, Shiv, Jewel Gauntlet, these are all good. And then we have another one here. If you have an Archangel and Renata, you can play around the Visionary Sentinel early, even go for the reroll if you want, or transition into like Heimerdinger. So a lot of the backline AP items, are the good slams and what you'll be playing them into. So any guard breaker, you go into Heimerdinger, Silco, you can even go into the Zoe. This is best install on Zoe as well. Shiv is any AP. Rageblade is only into Rebels for the AP line. So Rageblade is not good in the Heimerdinger or Silco lines. Archangel is really good into the Heimerdinger line or into the Swain Nami reroll. Jewel Gauntlet is any AP and Shojin is also any AP. Moving on to the next one, so now we have the Sork backline and we have the Academy backline. Same thing in the front line. You have Irelia or Singe 2, put items on whoever is upgraded. In the backline here, Lux is a better item holder than the Zyra. Shojin, Nashers, Shiv, Archangel, Jewel Gauntlet, Guardbreaker, these are all good. Just slam whatever you have based off of your item economy. And then in the other one, if you are able to high roll Ezreal, now you're looking for that Leona. Through Academy, you get a sponsored item, and depending on what that is, you just put it on the unit that corresponds. 80 items on Ezreal, AP items on Lux, and tank items on the Leona. Moving on to the 80 Sentinel openers now. So let's say you have an early game Tristana drop, you are able to make an Infinity Edge or a Rageblade, or let's say you have Worth the Wait 2 and Caretaker's Ally, that is Tristana. Well, now your Tristana reroll, Infinity Edge, Rageblade, go into 4 Sentinel and 4 Artillerist. Let's say you have a Loris and a Zeri, you could play into the Enforcer Sentinel Sniper line, IE plus Rageblade as well, and then you'll be going into Twitch. One thing to note for both of these compositions, Twitch and Tristana, Last Whisper is not as good on these actual units as opposed to even Shroud Frontline or Last Whisper a different unit. So make sure that late game, you do not have Last Whisper on your main carry in these two, if you can help it. All right, so those are all the Sentinel openers now. We're going to move on to the Watcher openers. So early Watchers allows you to cash out Conqueror stacks because of Darius. I love holding on to Darius, allows you to make early game econ once you hit the 10 break point and eventually the 35 conquest. Upgraded Darius and Mumu, you're going to be playing around the Watcher's opener and you want to be holding on to any Vlads or Vanders as well. The first one, Pit Fighter, Rageblade, you go into 4 Conqueror mid game, and then you can decide whether to pivot into 6 Conqueror if you get a +1, or just play into any like Rageblade composition. Sorks as well, you can play Sorks with Conqueror if you have, or Sorks with Watchers if you have the Vladimir. Vladimir is the important unit here. Here allows you to play 2 Conqueror, 2 Sork, 2 Watcher, put your tank items either on a 2-star Darius or on a 1-star Vladimir if they're both 1-star, and your AP items onto the Lux. A couple different options. Hitting the Swain is going to be the big one for Watchers because of the Conqueror link between Darius and Swain. Swain, amazing backline holder of AP items. He can also be a frontline unit if you need frontline and you have a Lux too. So this is rather flexible. And one of the strongest early to mid game boards is 4 Conqueror plus Vladimir. Vladimir gives you Watcher for the Darius and the Vlad, also gives you Sorcerer for your entire board. So this is one of my favorite boards to play if I can help it. Really good until stage 4, and then you'll just add either like 2 more Watcher, 2 more Sorcerers, a Pit Fighter, and a Form Swapper if you can, so like a Game Plank. Grants you a lot of free gold and will set you right up for stage 4. And then moving on to our final Watcher opener, if you have any melee items, let's say you get dropped a full Violet, you can play the Tempo Family Pit Fighter opener into the 4 Emissary Flex board, or put these items onto 6 Enforcer, eventually 8 Enforcer Vi. And then our final option here, if you have a Rageblade, early Kog'Maw, or an artifact that goes with him, so either a Lichbane, Wit's End, or a Gambler's Blade, you can definitely play Kog'Maw Watchers, start off with a Rageblade, and then finish off your other items depending on your artifact. And then moving on to our final one, the Bruiser's Opener here. The weakest, technically, compared to the Watchers and the Sentinels core. However, you can still win with 2 stars, and sometimes this is all that you hit. So if you have Last Whisper IE, hold on to those Maddies, hold on to those snipers, put your tank items either on 2-star Step or 2-star Trundle, and you could go to pivot into Corki or Twitch. You can also play around the Urgot if you have Unleash the Beast. In this case, you'll actually just go triple Sterics. If not, it'll be BT Steric Titans if you get a Nunu drop, and you can reroll Urgot as well along with Tristana. Okay, so let's head into the mid game now. One thing to note is while playing around your mid game, if you scout around and you start seeing some players who are contesting your same line, try to go for E3-2 Econ Augment, any like Epic Plus, Slammin Plus, Raining Gold Plus. These will help you out a lot, even like contested. Otherwise, just go for a Combat Augment. The first one here is kind of similar to the board that I was talking about earlier. For Conqueror, playing around that Swain in the backline and the Vladimir to hold everything together. Playing a Gangplank will allow you to get Form Swapper, so bonus damage and on your Swain. Also a little bit of Pit Fighter for both of these backline units as well. So really good board. You're able to get to like 65 cash out at least, hopefully maybe even like 100 depending on how many units you kill, and will just really boost your econ up and set you up for stage 4. So that's going to be the 4 Conqueror. You could go into Swain Nami if you get extra Namis and hopefully like an early Garen or an early Mbessa. You could go into Silco with these items. You could also go into Heimerdinger as well, just depending on what you end up hitting. 5 Rebel, you could play this mid-game as well. You put your Rageblade, you put your Guardbreaker onto your Ezreal, tank whatever frontline 2-star you have, either the Aurelia or the sets, and then finishing off with 7 Rebel starting stage 4. Other mid-game boards here, if you have an Archangel slammed, you're most likely going to Heimerdinger. So pretty standard 4 Sentinel, 3 Academy board here. Put your Heimerdinger items onto the Lux, and then just wait until stage 4. Transfer these items to a Heimerdinger, and then either play around 4 Sentinel with the Corki and the Jace, or 6 Sentinel with the Heimerdinger and Ezreal. If you have Last Whisper IE, let's say you're carrying a Maddie or Tristana early, you could transition into Corki Emissary or Twitch. You could also put your item holder onto an Ezreal for stage 3. Very good good item holder, and you are able to tech in 3 Academy quite easily as well. Alright, so we talked about the early game, we talked about the mid game here. Now we're going to finish off with how to transition over to the late game. So let's say we had that Archangel built earlier, right? We transitioned, we added 2 more Sentinels into the mid game. Let's say the Singed plus the Rel. And now the late game comes around stage 4, you transition over to the Heimerdinger, right? The Archangel Shiv goes on to any other backline units like Ezreal or like the Jace. Rumble eventually replaces the Singed, and if you have a Corki 2 or you have a Jace, you could just drop 2. You could just drop 2 of the Sentinels and then play the Corki and the Jace as well. Transitioning into the Silco board, so this is really easy from the 4 Conqueror or just playing around like the Vladimir Swain. Basically, any upgraded frontline plus Shojin AP backline early start can play into Silco. You just have to remember that this board is quite expensive, so hopefully you have an Econ Augment or are just playing from a good spot. You can also play this from like the Guardbreaker, Shiv, Jewel Gauntlet, Shojin Opener. These are all great for the Silco board. One thing to note, Mordekaiser is better than Blitz, and then as you go level 9, you can replace the Swain with a Jace backline. Remember, put the Hex Forge in the front, and then also play a LeBlanc as well. Transitioning into the Rebels board, so this will be when you have a Rebel start and you have an attack speed or AP backline. You shouldn't hard pivot into 7 Rebel from nothing because there are a lot of 1 and 2 cost units. So not only sometimes you can't find them for the 7 Rebel and you're stuck playing 5 or 6, which is not very good, or it's hard to 2-star them and these upgrades actually matter. One thing to note with 7 Rebel is you need Jinx. If you don't have Jinx, you're averaging around like a 6th place. So you really need a Jinx. I would even take the gold augment that gives you a Jinx. And then as soon as you have the Jinx, then you want to be playing an Echo. Before the Echo, you can play an Elise, and this will unfortunately have to be a Vex. And you will have Ezreal carrying your Jinx items, the Shojin and the Infinity Edge. Transitioning into Corki. From the early game, you'll be having an Infinity Edge plus a Last Whisper and any like 80 backline. You'll be playing around like the Maddie, Zeri, Ezreal early to mid. And then you can even use the Gangplank as well as an item holder within the, let's say, the Conqueror board. For the actual Corki transition, there's a couple boards you could play. This is my favorite one right now just because it caps pretty high. You could play the Rumble over the Alawi actually, so it's not over the Rel, that's my bad. It's the Rumble over the Alawi, and then a TF or a Jace on level 9. Corki's best in slot, the third item is just some sort of damage amp. So either a Deathblade, Guardbreaker I believe is best, and Giant Slayer is good on him as well. And then finishing things off here, let's say you have the Rageblade IE opener, you're going to be playing into Experiment Twitch. Make sure you're binding the Twitch, the Urgot, and the Mundo. And as mentioned, you'll be playing this from a Rageblade IE opener, either from a Maddie, Zeri, or a Draven. Now, one thing to note, hopefully you get bailed out on either 3-2 or 4-2 because Twitch without one of these conditions is not that good. You want to either have a Bruiser +1 and then Bruiser the Mundo and play 6 Bruiser instead. An Experiment +1, this will allow you to drop Zyra, play a 5 cost unit or an Ambessa, or have a collector on your Twitch. In this case, you'll just drop the red buff. One thing to note, you want to be playing Caitlyn over Maddie ASAP, and then Caitlyn will be holding a blue buff and an Infinity Edge +1. And also Mordekaiser on level 9. Okay, and that's the entire video. So I'll do a quick recap about everything that we discussed today regarding the openers. So we talked about what to do on stage 1. We talked about the best item slams. We talked about the best unit holds. We talked about what to do when you're dropped 2 costs and how to play around those packages. We then moved on to stage 2 best openers. Sentinels better than the Watchers, better than the Bruisers. Doesn't mean that Watchers and Bruisers are bad. It's just right now Sentinels are the best. How to play around it. Most of the time you're playing AP backline around Visionaries or Sorks. Mid game, playing your strongest board. I love playing around 4 Conqueror. It's very good. It gives you the econ that you need. You can play around 5 Rebel. Just play around whatever strongest board you have. And then late game transition based onto what you have, whether it be Silco, Heimerdinger, Corki, Twitch, even the Zoe. Plenty of boards that you could play just depending on how you ladder down from your opener, from your mid game into your late game. So that has been everything. If you learned something from today, make sure you join the Discord in the pinned comment and the description. I'm Upside Max again. Thanks you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Have a great day, and good luck in your games.